All right, everyone. Chef Lily here. Welcome back. I have a menu full of tomatoes today. Totally tomatoes is our theme. We're going to make a homemade tomato soup, a tomato toast with herb cream cheese, and a tomato salad that's known as a caprese that has some fresh mozzarella and basil. So let's go ahead and get started, friends. We're going to get started by getting our soup going. That's going to take the longest. So I'm going to go ahead and sharpen my chef knife here. This is the most important tool that a chef can have in their kitchen. Really, you could get rid of almost every other knife and just have this guy, and you'll be able to chop up all of your ingredients. A lot of home cooks, they dislike chopping stuff up, and it's because they have a dull knife. And if you also have, this tool, this is called a steel, then you can do what's called honing your knife, where you get it in shape and get it nice and sharp before you go ahead and get started. So we just take the knife and hold it at an angle against the steel, and we hone our knife. And that'll make it so we can dice up our yellow onion that we have here. I definitely recommend for grown-ups to cook onions, or older kids. And so I'm going to use half an onion. Yeah, I'll use the whole thing, actually. Let's see, I'm going to peel my onion first. It has a really thin skin, so I'm just going to take off the first layer. Better than taking an hour to peel the onion, in my opinion. All right, so once we have the peel off, you'll notice when I cut off the end of the onion, I cut off the end that comes out of the ground, and I kept the root end because that's the end that's going to hold the halves together when I dice it up. Some people lob that off, and then your onion just kind of falls apart. So you can kind of follow the natural lines on the onion and dice it up. Oh, this guy is strong, making me cry a little bit. And you see that root end is all that you have left if you did it correctly. Okay, so I have my soup pot preheating. I have a burner here. Woo! Onion, hitting me in the eyes. And I'm going to use some clarified butter. You can use butter, or you can use olive oil in this recipe. This is called ghee, clarified butter, and I'm just using it because I have that. I have it in the house. Use what you got handy, right? Okay. So we're chopping up our onion. We're going to add that. We want to get the onion nice and soft, slightly caramelized. So let's go ahead and get that in the pan before we proceed by adding the other vegetables. Always get your onion sauteing first. Ooh, that's the sound that we want to hear, folks. We really want to hear the sound of the food bubbling. That means that we got our pan nice and hot, right? Okay. So the onions are in. Let's go ahead and dice up our other ingredients. We have some celery sticks we're going to use. We'll chop them nice and small so they get tender fast. The smaller you chop everything, the faster it'll cook. Okay. I love making homemade soup, and typically the base for all soups is onion, carrot, and celery. We call that a mirepoix. I'm trying to adjust so you guys can see my hands here. All right, hopefully that helps. Whew. Getting hot in here. right, so the celery is in the pot. I'm gonna put in some carrots. I'm not gonna worry about peeling these carrots since we're gonna puree our soup. We're gonna dice up these carrots. Put them in the pot to saute also. Saute means to cook the ingredients in a pot or a pan and move them around with a spatula or a spoon so that they caramelize or brown or turtle peck on all sides. Sauteing is done without a lid. We don't have the lid on. All right, so let's go ahead and let these ingredients cook for a while. And let's talk about what else we're going to make. We are going to make our roasted tomato toast. And I'm going to go ahead and make our toast. I have a baguette here. This guy got pretty stale, so this is a really good thing to do if you have some leftover bread that might be too crusty to use just to eat regularly or eat fresh. Then you can go ahead and slice it up and toast it, and that'll kind of bring it back to life. All right, so I'm going to slice my bread, and I'm going to put the pieces on my sheet tray. And we'll go ahead and put some olive oil and some salt and pepper on my toast, and we'll bake them until they're nice and crispy, lightly browned. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put our pieces of bread down. And these are called crostini sometimes, and they're also called bruschetta sometimes. Crostini in France, bruschetta in Italy, and toast in America. All right, our mirepoix. Did I say that this is called a mirepoix? The onion, celery, and carrot. It is like the foundation of all soups and stews, pretty much. So once you learn how to make one kind of soup, you can kind of use the method to make other kinds of soup. Alrighty, my toasts are looking good. Let's go ahead, drizzle them with olive oil. And you could paint these with olive oil if you're not too confident in your drizzling skills with a pastry brush, or you can give kids some spoons and a little bowl of olive oil and let them use that if you don't want them to be handling a whole bowl, whole bottle like I have here. All right, so the olive oil is drizzled down generously. We're going to put salt and pepper on these. We really want to season in layers, season as we go. That's kind of what makes food that chefs make so delicious, is because they season, use salt and pepper throughout the cooking process instead of just at the end of the cooking process. It makes a big difference to season your soup while you're sauteing the vegetable, after you add the stock, and then finally at the end too. So I don't just add salt and pepper once, you know, sometimes I'll add it up to 3 times. But you have to be very careful to not over season when you season in layers. So right now I'm seasoning that mirepoix with a little bit of salt and pepper. Sometimes seasoning my bread, I might as well have it out. And the salt will even start to draw out some of the moisture and get the onions cooking even faster. All right, let's put some salt on these toasts. These will not take long. I'm gonna put them in the oven for 5 to 10 minutes. And we're gonna dice up some garlic for our soup. I love garlic. Use a few cloves here. All right. So we want to keep sauteing the ingredients in the pot until they get kind of nice and tender and really kind of cooked down, and the onions start to caramelize a little bit, turn brown, and that means the sugars, the natural sugars in the onion are getting toasted. So that's caramelization, when the sugars become brown. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and dice up some garlic. Put some garlic in our soup. Now, I just love this tomato soup recipe. It's a bisque, which is a pureed soup, but I call it creamy tomato soup. It's wonderful right now because we are using fresh tomatoes. They're in season, but this is a fantastic soup to make with canned diced tomatoes or whole tomatoes or tomatoes that you've canned yourself. So don't be afraid to make this soup in the fall or the winter as well. Great soup for your favorite grilled cheese sandwich. All right, I'm gonna use a lot of garlic. I really like garlic. And I'll save a little bit for my cream cheese mixture that is gonna go on my toast. All righty. I like using my chef knife for the garlic, but you could use a garlic press. And you could also use Curious Chef knife, the kid safe knife that I have. That's a good tool for this garlic. You can even put a little bit of salt on the garlic, and that'll really macerate it. And that means get it nice and juicy and broken down. The salt, again, will start to draw out that moisture in the garlic and all the flavor that's in there. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Garlic is getting macerated, and it helps it kind of stick to your cutting board better. Oh, it smells so good. I always use fresh garlic. I don't use the jarred stuff. If you don't have it, you just have garlic powder. That'll work too. Oh, come on, garlic. All right, I'm gonna save just a little bit for my cream cheese, and then I'm gonna put the rest in the soup to saute with the other ingredients. Mmm, smelling good, everybody. Smelling good. Okay, we're gonna use a little bit of tomato paste in our soup, and tomato paste is gonna add flavor, but it's also gonna add a ton of body. It's gonna like be a thickening agent, and it's also gonna be an emulsifying agent, so that the broth, the stock and the cream and the pureed tomatoes are gonna kind of all be brought together and bound together with the tomato paste. So the tomato paste is a great emulsifier. Emulsification means bringing two ingredients together into one, two separate ingredients together into one stage, you know, like oil and vinegar when you're making a salad dressing, emulsify it to bring it together into a dressing. Well, this is gonna emulsify the soup so that the stock and the cream and the tomatoes all stay together versus separating. Hopefully that makes sense there. So we're gonna brown the tomato paste a little bit though with our mirepoix, and that'll kind of help so that it doesn't taste so acidic. Always want to kind of brown your tomato paste a little bit. Smells good. And I have a bundle of fresh thyme. I'm going to use some fresh thyme in my soup. I just love it. And I'll also use some fresh thyme in my roasted tomatoes. So my fresh thyme here is dried out a lot. I've had it for a while, but it still has a ton of awesome flavor. And it smells great. But if you don't have fresh thyme, you can go ahead and use dried thyme. That'll work too. I'm going to just go ahead and saute that thyme a little bit because the leaves will be reawakened by the heat. We call that blooming. That means that those oils in there kind of get heated up and the scent and the aromatic properties get released. So does the flavor. All right, so we have thyme in there. Oh, here's my cream cheese, friends, that we're going to use for our toast. So let's go ahead and get some garlic in there and some thyme in with the tomatoes. So we really want to make sure that the garlic that goes in with the cream cheese is just fully macerated because it's going to be raw. You don't want to have like really chunky raw garlic in your cream cheese. That might be a mouth surprise for your mouth, especially for kids. Okay, this is looking just great. So now what we need to do is add our tomatoes. So I'm using fresh tomatoes here. And I'm just going to go ahead and you see I have these Roma tomatoes. These are an Italian variety. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off their ends, cut them in half or quarters, and throw them in my pot and kind of keep cooking them down. And like I said, I have an heirloom. This one's really cool. Old-timey tomato. Different colors. It's ripe, even though it's yellow. All right, I'm going to keep cooking them down, but like I said, this would be a fantastic recipe for your canned tomatoes as well. And honestly, if you only have, not the best looking tomatoes that aren't super ripe, canned tomatoes would even taste better because those are canned at the peak of ripeness. There's nothing wrong with a canned tomato, let me tell you. It tastes great. But my tomatoes were just falling off the stems, off of the vines in the garden. So if you have that going on, time to make tomato soup. All right, got all my tomatoes cut up. Let's cook them down a little bit before we go ahead and add our vegetable stock. Not too much. Get things simmering. And I need to check those toes. Oh, they're perfect. All right, they should be nice and crunchy. These are nice and crunchy. They look beautiful. So I'm going to set them over here. And actually, I'll transfer them to this platter because I'm going to go ahead and roast my cherry tomatoes on that sheet tray. All right. Let's go ahead and add our stock first. And I'm going to add a little bit of water, and then I'm going to add a product called Better Than Bouillon. That's just like bouillon, but it's in a jar instead of in little cubes. But it's basically just like commercially available stock. You can use homemade vegetable stock, you can use box vegetable stock, you can use bouillon cubes, or you could use this jarred Better Than bouillon, whatever you have on hand to be your vegetable stock. But I'm using water and Better Than bouillon. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that to a simmer while we finish up here. All right. The soup is going to be delicious. Okay, where were we? We are taking our toast off of our sheet tray and putting them on this plate. This makes a beautiful appetizer. And kids just love these because they look pretty fancy. All right, that's how many will fit right now. So we'll go ahead and set these right here. And then I'll set the extra in a little container off to the side. And we're going to reuse our sheet tray. Why not, right? Okay, here's our extra toast. Here's our sheet tray. So I have all these beautiful rainbow heirloom cherry tomatoes. I'm going to put on my sheet tray, and I'm going to use a little bit more olive oil. Woo. You can toss them in the bowl or do this. And then we're going to put some salt and pepper on those, and we're going to put them in the oven, and we're going to cook them until they caramelize. Remember what I told you? That means the sugars start to brown and they burst. And then we'll pile them up on our toast. All right. So let me clean up a little bit, friends. You always want to clean as you go in the kitchen. Really important. It's easy to get overwhelmed in the kitchen, but if you clean as you go, you'll be a lot less likely to get overwhelmed. So just take a few minutes to clean up your area. If you've got a mess going on like I do. Alrighty, we're going to keep using the thyme. Let's set that right there. Okay. Cream. Really what I need is my towel. Chefs love towels, let me tell you. All right, friends. So now our soup is simmering. Our toasts are made, our tomatoes are in the oven, and we're going to go ahead and start on our beautiful caprese salad. This is a classic Italian salad. It's going to be just lovely. Let me find a plate to compose it on. Ooh, this is going to look just gorgeous on this plate. All right, so I'm going to make what's called a balsamic glaze for this salad, and I'm going to take a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and I'm going to put it in my pan here, and I'm going to reduce it until it's a syrup consistency. Reduce means let the water evaporate out, and then the vinegar itself will concentrate, and it'll be a syrupy consistency, so we can drizzle it onto our caprese salad, and it'll add a ton of flavor that isn't always added to caprese salad. Sometimes caprese just has salt and pepper and olive oil, and they don't use the balsamic glaze, but this is going to make it taste real extra. You just don't want to forget about this. Really don't want to forget about this. So if you have it behind you like I do, make sure you're thinking about it often. because it will smell if it burns. I need a lid for my soup pot. We're just going to go ahead and use that. That'll make do. We're from the school to make do around here. All right, so I have these beautiful tomatoes for my caprese salad, and I'm going to use my bread knife to slice these, friends, because sometimes not everybody maintains a super sharp chef knife, and your bread knife will get through these tomatoes without ruining them. So use a bread knife to cut your tomatoes for your caprese if your chef knife isn't the sharpest in the drawer. So I'm slicing these tomatoes, and I'm just gonna kind of put them in a circle on my platter. And this salad is one that is best in the summertime and months like August, when you have local ripe tomatoes that taste, that really epitomize the flavor of tomato. You don't want a tomato from Mexico that isn't all the way ripe for this, that's for sure. All righty, one in the center. Oh, I can hear my vinegar. It's boiling and the water in the vinegar is reducing. And I'm going to go ahead and stir my soup. Scrape the bottom. Okay. So now for our salad, we're going to add some fresh mozzarella cheese. This is called burrata. Ooh, this is really soft, fresh mozzarella. And then fresh mozzarella goes right on top of the tomato. Just a small amount. And this is different than mozzarella that goes on pizza because it hasn't been aged at all. So the flavor is much more delicate. The texture is much softer. But if you can't get your hands on it, if you just use a little slice of mozzarella, regular mozzarella, that'll be just fine too. Like I said, we like to use what we got, right? All right. Very soft burrata. Okay, just a little bit. And now we're going to use fresh basil. These fresh basil leaves are beautiful. And they smell so good. We don't want to ruin these, right? A lot of people will just run their knife through them and they'll make grass clippings out of them. We don't want to do that. A nice tool is the scissors. Give your kids the scissors and let them snip little bits of the basil right over the burrata. So this is a good meal or a good dish to collaborate with the kids, where you slice the tomatoes, maybe let the older children slice the cheese and the little children snip the herbs. It's a family affair, right? This is looking beautiful. And so we're gonna wait a while until we're ready to eat it. And we'll drizzle it with olive oil and with our balsamic glaze. But that's the salad, friends. Super easy. Oh, and a little bit of salt and pepper. Our balsamic glaze is ready. That's all it takes. But I want to show it to you so you can see what I mean. It's nice and thick. It's about 2 minutes away from being burnt. So like I said, right before it burns, it's perfect. But don't take your eye off of this. Keep your eye on it. You don't want balsamic candy. Oh, the tomatoes are almost done already. So let's go ahead and finish making our cream cheese. Our cream cheese are going to go on our toast before our tomatoes. So in the bowl, we have our garlic. I'm going to add some lemon pepper. And you could add the zest of a lemon. I have this lemon pepper at home, so I figured that would work really well. And a little bit of salt. Oh, and you could use some chives or some green onion in here as well. That would be really delicious. But I'm just going to go with the garlic. And then you're going to use a spatula or a spoon to just smash that up. So now we have a flavored cream cheese. This would be great on a bagel or some crackers. So we're going to spread it on our toast here in a minute. Okay. So you can just use your spatula now to spread a very thin layer of cream cheese on each piece of toast. And then we'll go ahead and top each one with some of the tomatoes. Beautiful, beautiful appetizer or snack or dinner. Oh, let's not forget our soup. I hear it in here. All right, let's check our soup out. Those tomatoes are probably getting nice and soft. And our soup is almost done. Tomato soup does not take that long, friends. So we're going to go ahead, stir the soup. Check out those tomatoes. They're getting nice and soft. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Add some heavy whipping cream. This is what's going to make it creamy tomato soup. We're going to let that cook. Friends, you probably think, oh, I don't cook with heavy cream. I'm going to add skim milk. That's not going to work. You need the full fat from the heavy cream to emulsify. That word I used earlier, you can look it up if you want a better explanation for the fat to emulsify with the hot soup. If you put skim milk in there, it'll just make your soup really lumpy and the milk will separate from the tomatoes. It'll have a bad chemical reaction. Heavy cream, friends. All right, so we're going to put our cream in, let that cook for a minute with a lot of fresh basil. Let the basil cook in there for a minute, and then we'll puree our soup. Smells so good, smells so good. Let me check our tomatoes real quick, everybody. Oh, our tomatoes are almost ready. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and get some of this fresh thyme on them and stick them back in the oven for a minute. I didn't put the thyme on at the beginning because I don't want it to burn. And I'm going to put it on now and then put it back in the oven so that the herbs, the oils and the herbs can kind of bloom from the heat, but also not burn. So the best of both worlds by putting them in for like the last, putting the herbs in just for the last few minutes. So put that back in the cook for another couple minutes while you finish your toast. And you don't want too much cream cheese on these. So you could use a knife if that'll give you better control than your spatula. A butter knife will work really well, or the kid's chef knife. And if you like goat cheese is really delicious mixed in with this cream cheese mixture. So is mascarpone cheese. Really, any soft cheese that you like. A little bit of feta cheese would be good in there also. And if you don't want to serve it with the cream cheese and the tomatoes on top, you can have everything in a little bowl so that people can assemble it themselves. All right. Looking good, looking good. I'm going to put this back here and let's go ahead and puree this soup now. This is called a hand mixer or a burr mixer. And it's awesome to puree soup without having to put the soup in a blender. Because if you put soup in a regular hot blender, it's gonna explode. So we put it in here. This is pureeing it. Takes a few minutes. And if you want it chunky, then you can leave it a little chunky. If you like it really smooth, you puree it till it's really smooth. You can puree it till it's the perfect consistency that you like. Immersion blender, that's the word I was looking for. It's also called immersion blender. Soup smells and looks so delicious. And it has a lot of body because of that cream. That means it's nice and thick. And that tomato paste. All right. I'm going to taste that in a minute, but first I'm going to check these tomatoes. Oh, they're looking good, friends. Looking really, really good. So let me show you what we do to plate here. And actually, the safest thing would be to transfer your tomatoes to a bowl. Be very careful. You don't drop one. And then you can use a spoon to go ahead and top each toast. So these are very, very pretty, as you see, but they're also extremely hot. So we can let these tomatoes cool down a little bit before we top the rest of them. But I just want to show you, I put about 3 tomatoes per toast. And let's go ahead and show you my balsamic glaze. It almost did turn to balsamic candy, friends. Really nice and thick, almost too thick. I'm going to see if I add a little bit of the non-reduced balsamic and just stir it up, if that'll make the right consistency. If not, we'll just drizzle a little balsamic in the bottle. Because I took our glaze a little bit too far. That's all right. We all make mistakes sometimes. We're not going to use it. What we're going to do is we're going to just take a little bit of olive oil. a little bit of balsamic. Just be careful with it, friends. And some fresh salt, some salt and freshly ground black pepper. Where is my pepper? I know it was right in front of my face. There we go. Right back here, of course. A lot of pepper. Oh, Caprese looks so good. Our toast looks so good. Ow! At least that wasn't the vinegar, right? That's why we always want to put the lid back on. Okay, let's check out our soup now. Let's make sure before we ladle up a whole bowl. Oh yeah, oh yeah. We're checking for salt and pepper. All right, friends, our soup is gonna be delicious. Thanks so much for joining us again for our Totally Tomatoes. Hope you come again next time.